And we're all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I had mentioned, I am the statewide extended foster care program manager for DCYF. So that's what I'm going to take time talking about today. Kind of just a little overview of my presentation here. I'm going to give kind of an overview of what extended foster care is, kind of why is extended foster care needed, what are some of those challenges for youth that are aging out of care, kind of some of the key services that we provide, some of the recent changes. There's been some pretty big changes under some of the state bills and things like that. Also, just kind of what program enhancements looks like. Enrollment is much simpler than it used to be. Kind of what does the support look like and some proposed incentives. And then I'll kind of just briefly discuss some impact, and I'll share a couple success stories. Okay. So what is extended foster care? So extended foster care is a voluntary program for foster youth. It is 100% voluntary. A youth has to agree and want to be a part of this program to be a part of it. If they don't want to be, they can simply ask to not be in the program, and that is all it takes. But to be eligible, and actually, I'll go, that's my next slide, sorry. Actually, no, it's not. So I'll get into that. To be eligible, you have to be dependent on your 18th birthday. One thing that is cool and kind of unique that does apply even to some of our youth that are in private dependencies, you know, some of our refugee youth and things like that. When they turn 18, they still are dependent youth, even though they're not dependent within the department. So if you ever have questions, that's definitely something to reach out and ask for, because it can be a little bit complex and it is not always black and white, just to kind of throw that out there for everybody. So extended foster care is for the age group of 18 years old to their 21st birthday. And it is up until the day that they turn 21. The day they turn 21, that is when services end. The goal is that we've already connected to other services if still needed, or we've developed some independence so the youth doesn't necessarily need as many services as before. Like I said, it's designed for those that are on their 18th birthday. You can agree to enter foster care at 17, extended foster care at 17 and a half, but it does not start until your 18th birthday, just to make that clear. So why is extended foster care critical? It really is, you know, all of our youth that are aging out.
Excuse me, Jordan.
Yeah.
Your slides are not progressing with you.
They're not?
No.
What is going on? It shows it on my end. That's weird.
We're seeing your editing view, not your presenting view.
What? Okay, let me. That is weird. I need to share my different screen here. I'm sorry. Let me. Still the same one?
Yep.
Gosh dang it. Okay, give me a second here. I apologize.
No problem.
There we go. Is that better?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
And then I lost it. Okay. All right. So where was that? Let me regain my bearings. I apologize. All right. So why is extended foster care critical? So youth that are aging out of foster care without services, even with services, face a lot of barriers. That's homelessness, substance use disorders, more increased involvement in the criminal justice system, as well as unemployment. There's also, you know, I think I would say within homelessness, instability of housing too. There's a lot of couch surfing. There's a lot of popping from young adult shelter to CRC, things like that, which goes right along with that. And, you know, really youth that don't have that support, a lot of these things can carry into adulthood and become lifelong consequences for not having that support. So the goal of extended foster care is to create some wraparound to be able to, one, connect to services, also create some skills so that way youth are able to navigate some of these systems on their own, teach them kind of how to do a lot of that. Now let me make sure it changes. Did it change?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So a lot of the program goals and objectives, like I mentioned, you know, is to enhance that stability during that transition to adulthood. So some context with that, our youth that are transitioning into extended foster care, that's what we call it. There is what we call a 17 and a half shared planning meeting that occurs that kind of develops what is your plan going into extended foster care. What are some of the supports that you need? Is it around education? Is it around housing? Do we need to help you find a placement? Things like that. There's also another meeting that occurs towards the end of their stay in extended foster care at 20 and a half for that shared planning meeting. And it's very, very similar to those same goals. And the goal for that 20 and a half meeting is more kind of, we've got these boxes checked. How are we passing you off to whether that's your own independence and whatever that looks like for you? Who do we need to fold in to wrap around to make sure all of your success that you're having prior continues through into your later stages of adulthood? Like I kind of mentioned here on the slide, providing that safety net of support for vulnerable youth. Our youth that are in this population, often have grown up in the system. They've been, there's been tons of trauma, things like that. So the goal is to really address all of those things with different means, in a lot of different ways. Improve the long-term outcomes for housing. That's one of the biggest things. There's some state bills going on right now that we're hoping will pass that really directly supports the extended foster care population. That kind of separates them outside of the general population, so that there's a little bit more attention on this really, really important transition time, right? Where it's difficult if you don't have all of the other things and cards stacked against you, right? I think anybody in a quote unquote normal situation struggles in that period of time. It's a really, really big transition. So the goal is to really address as much of that in housing as possible. Obtaining educational supports, whatever that may be. Is it GED? Is it finishing high school? Is it further education, college, things like that? We also throw in, I would say, technical schools and things like that of that nature. We work a lot with Job Corps and those sorts of things as well. Developing employment readiness skills, interviewing skills, resume building skills, those sorts of things. And then life skill development. A lot of that really kind of does depend on region. There's some regions that have a lot of providers that help with life skills. We also do work closely with our independent living programs as well for that. Excuse me. So one of our key supports is housing supports. Some of those options include some of our licensed foster homes. This could be supervised independent living settings where they actually get a SIL payment of $861 a month if they are out of a licensed foster care home. So that's the differentiation there. So if they're in a licensed foster home, that foster home gets that monthly payment. But if they're not in one of those settings, it goes directly to the youth. So it really kind of just depends on what's needed for that scenario. Kind of how I differentiate like therapeutic foster homes, things like that. A lot of our licensed providers and foster families will kind of do a room and board type of agreement with our youth. So that way the youth do get that payment directly to them. So that way they can also start building some skills. That's the goal of that payment, is to be able to address obviously some of their financial needs, but also to be able to help with housing and things of that nature. Also some of those other suitable housing options that could be, independent living, that could be Job Corps, that could be wherever the youth wants to live and it's a safe place to be, they can be there. And that's some of the changes I'll get into in a little bit here too. Youth have complete control over where they live now. That's something that is different with some of the changes with 5908. And the goal, like I had mentioned, is to ensure safe and stable living arrangements and work to build those skills to be able to maintain them. Educational assistance. So this is support, like I had mentioned, for high school diploma, GED attainment. We work a lot with Treehouse for a lot of that support, which is a really great partnership right here even. So, a lot of our youth have Treehouse advocates. A lot of our social workers are at their, their conferences, they're at their IEP meetings, those sorts of things. So there is a lot of support from that nature. Also connections to a lot of those vocational training programs. I had mentioned Job Corps is one of them. There's a new program starting up called LifeSet, things like that. And the goal is to really wrap around with these services, right? It's not a one size fits all. It's what is applicable to that youth at the time. Some youth as well, like I mentioned, pursue higher education. We help with that. We help with, there's some, a lot of our foster youth qualify for scholarships as well. That's where that kind of falls in. For unemployment, like I had mentioned, kind of the job training, career counseling. We do have some career specialists that they can work with. And again, a lot of regions have really, really great partnerships with a lot of community programs, and that does often vary by region. just so I'm not going to really speak to specifics just because of that. Just for context for everybody, it really does vary region by region, kind of who does what and kind of the robustness of that or not. Again, the ongoing goal is to support and maintain employment. And this, all three of these things I just mentioned, every time we have a shared planning meeting, which should be happening every 90-ish days, we're talking about these goals. What does the progress look like? What support do you need? It's very, very youth driven. It's not, hey, we need you to do this to be involved in the program anymore. And I'll get to that here shortly. Life skills training, there's a lot of one I will share in region 4, which is around the Seattle area. We've developed a partnership with Canopy Bank and I forget the other one, Banner Bank, I believe, where they're actually coming in and doing some financial coaching with our youth that ask for that. They help them open bank accounts. It's also barrier free for their bank accounts. They don't, most of our youth, they're all going to be 18 and adults anyways. But it's very low barrier. They don't need any cosigners, things like that. They have built-in protections, so like overdraft protection that's very different than kind of what all of us would maybe walk into and ask for when we go to the bank. It's a very, very unique program that they've developed specifically for foster youth. It does have a lot of hands-on mentoring. Again, financial management ties into that. And then also kind of cooking and nutrition. What supports can we wrap around you there to teach you how to manage your budget around cooking and nutrition? What does that lead to? How do you cook healthily? You know, what can you do with the small budget that you have and still have a nutritious meal? And also within that, if you maybe don't have the resources, where can you get food? Things like that, you know, again, that's very location specific, but a lot of it is just teaching how to navigate the system. I would really kind of describe it as coaching, you know, really walking alongside somebody modeling a lot of this behavior, you know, not necessarily, I'm going to do all of this for you. That's not the goal, because then we're creating someone helplessness, right? We're trying to get these youth to do it along with us to build independence and confidence, so that way they don't eventually need the support, is hopefully the goal. Okay, so some of the changes. So this just came about last year with State Bill 5908, and truthfully, I think this is a wonderful change. You know, because before, the federal eligibility requirements that you absolutely had to be working 80 hours a month or more, you had to be pursuing employment, and you had to be showing like turning, just kind of like what you would do on unemployment. You had to show the applications that you're turning in, follow up, things like that. You had to be enrolled in school or GED program, further education, things like that, or you had to have a documented disability. And those are the only ways. And if you say you weren't going to school because of whatever, you know, mental health crisis or housing instability, right? It's hard to go to school when you don't have housing. You would be exited from the program. That's not the case anymore, which is really, really awesome. So we're seeing a lot more of our youth staying enrolled in extended foster care that are getting a lot more support than they were prior. And a lot of those youth are eligible for that SIL payment that helps them kind of, you know, whether it's housing, whether it's, you know, just having the financial means to be able to do things that a normal functioning 18-year-old would do things with their friends, things like that. That's the goal, you know, so there's a lot less limitations around that. All they have, the youth, like I mentioned, all the youth has to do is simply volunteer to participate. That's all that it is. Before, it used to be this big, long court order process. They had to agree to it. It would take 2-3 months for a youth to get into extended foster care. And at that point, you know, they're already well into a struggle and not really knowing where to navigate. You know, maybe they've already lost touch with their social worker, things like that. So it really has sped up the process, and we're seeing a lot less of those youth fall through the cracks. They're getting connected to workers much faster, or often they're able to stay with the same worker they maybe had before, which has even been better. That's been a really cool thing to see. So like I mentioned, the simplified enrollment process, really, like I said, all they have to do is during their 17 and a half, say, hey, I want to be part of extended foster care. They can do this electronically now, which before it used to have to be pen to paper. It was a really, really odd barrier, if you ask me, if I'm being transparent, you know, that we had to get a physical signature on a piece of paper to be able to enter. Now it can be a digital signature. So for some of our youth that just don't have the means to get into an office sometimes, you know, things like that, it's much easier for them to enroll. They can opt out at any time, like I had mentioned. Before, it used to have to be a court order, things like that, and it had to be approved, all of it's, that's not what the case is anymore. It's 100% voluntary. So like I mentioned, what we're seeing is a lot better outcomes of youth really wanting to be a part of this program instead of, oh man, I have to do this. It's more, what can I get out of this? And youth are really seeing a lot of benefits from that. Like I mentioned, there's no longer a need for a formal discharge process. The youth remain in care. So one thing that's been nice is maybe when we lose a youth for a minute because maybe they've moved, maybe they're just not wanting to communicate with their social worker, we're not losing them and not being able to still work with them. They're still staying enrolled in the program. So, sometimes an example of that would be maybe a youth moved, they didn't have a phone. They would have been exited prior if they didn't meet their social worker once a month, right? Maybe it's been 2 months since we've caught them. They were able to catch their social worker, hey, I moved, finally have internet again, something like that. Then we can also go back and back pay them for those SIL payments if they were eligible at that time as well too. That's something that's new under this 5908 as well, which is really awesome because it supports the youth, because there's a lot of barriers that, curveballs that happen in their lives and things like that. So it helps them navigate a little bit better as well, instead of kind of being all in, all out type of, it's more of a like I mentioned, that safety net, right? So incentives of the program, like I had mentioned, support and connection with the caseworker. They help a lot with referrals, coaching themselves, a lot of that hands-on assistance. If not living in licensed care, that 861 SIL payment directly to that young adult. There are some proposed incentives under 5908. I want to throw them out there just because they're awesome. We're not there yet, just due to funding and things like that. And, with 5908 just passing last year, there's still a lot of infrastructure that needs to be done within this. But the goal and a lot of the, community groups and lived experts are really excited about this too, because it's going to incentivize, in addition to the SIL payment, participation in those education opportunities, those employment opportunities, and things like that. Even working with a housing specialist might be incentivized as well. And that the goal is, having that be monetary or through gift cards or through goods, things like that. So there is a lot of really good to come there. We're just, like I mentioned, we're just not there yet. I just really like to throw it out there because it's really exciting that that's kind of the realm that we're moving into. Just more to come on that. Okay, so expected benefits, are reduced rates of homelessness and housing instability, like I mentioned, the improved educational and employment outcomes. A big one is decreased substance use and criminal justice involvement. And a big part of that is through those referral services. We're able to refer for mental health services if needed. We're able to refer for SUD services if needed. There's a lot of, and again, it's very region specific, but there's a lot of support around it for this age group. And it's cool to see that kind of uptick. We're understanding as an agency and as a whole that, the root of a lot of these issues that we come to are so deeply rooted in substance use and mental health and trauma, things like that. So doing everything we can to fold that in. It's not just a housing problem. It's not just an education problem. We're really trying to look at the person as a whole individual. We've had a lot of work going with UW, a lot of advocacy groups, like I mentioned, the Live Experience group, even with our policies and procedures that are completely getting changed right now. There's a lot of community work within that too. A lot of lived experts, a lot of youth that have been through the program themselves that are having direct impact on what that looks like to better support our youth. So some of the challenges, are just the navigating transition to independence is hard, like I've mentioned. Balancing support with self-reliance, like I mentioned. We don't want to I kind of use the analogy, get behind somebody on the mountain and push them up to the top of the mountain. We want to walk alongside them, with them, and teach them how to do it on their own, right? That's always difficult to do. And there's many reasons why, and I think I could talk about that for forever, but like I've mentioned some of them, it's trauma, it's developmental, it's, do they trust their caseworker or not? There's a lot of factors to that. But we've had some really, really good success stories. And I actually want to share a couple. One I'll share that I was actually part of firsthand prior to me coming to the agency, which was pretty cool actually, because in context, I've been with DCYF for about 2.5 months now. So this is a pretty new role for me. So I'm stepping into it. But we were able to support a youth that had just turned 18, that was homeless, that did not have a place to be. And we were able to, the social worker was able to connect with me at the program I was at the time, which was Excelsior in Spokane, their Life Point program, if anybody has heard of it, transitional living program, for a youth that really needed that housing component met, but also really needed a lot of that wraparound mental health support as well, which happens there. It's a therapeutic kind of transitional placement where there's a lot of mental health groups, there's a lot of individual therapy, there's access to substance use, things like that. This youth was able to come over from Seattle just for a tour. And then before he left, he actually was like, how quickly could I maybe actually enroll? It just so happened that we had an opening at that time. He didn't even have to leave the program. We worked with social worker and things like that to actually get all the rest of his belongings from Seattle shipped over to him. And he's continued to work with a social worker and actually had a lot of success. It was a youth that definitely had some pretty significant mental health. He was able to get some therapy and then actually made the decision to get some medication management that really, from my perspective and his perspective, has changed his life. Schizoaffective disorder, things like that, that he never really explored until we kind of got to that realm. And I bring that example up. It's an example of that wraparound. And he's still in that placement, really working on stabilizing that, working into employment with the goal of housing, so that really is one option, just kind of just one example. Let me just pull up another example because I had another caseworker share one with me. Another, so she just aged out of care. So she just turned 21. She had been enrolled since her 18th birthday. Her brothers and herself were all in care from starting at a very young age of 7. And they had been through the whole time. This young person was able to graduate high school with the support of their social worker, explicitly stating that your support was what helped me know that I could do it. She graduated from college and is actually now the caregiver for her own 2 younger brothers that are 16 and 14 right now. So there has been some really cool just success stories through that. And again, it was through that wraparound, you know what I mean? And it looks differently for everybody. And that's, I think, why I kind of shared kind of 2 different stories there, because it really, we have some of our youth that are in the military, that are completing basic training and things like that. And they're still enrolled in extended foster care. They're eligible for their SIL payments, things like that, So it really is a wide spectrum of support. Yeah, I think I'll go with that one. Well, I'll throw my contact up there.
All yours.
All right. Thank you, Jordan, for that wonderful presentation. I, for one, am so excited about a lot of the new things when it comes to EFC. So thank you for sharing that. And again, I put it in the chat earlier, but I just also want to say thank you all for joining us today. We have a lot of really important people in the room today, from caregivers to case aides to BRS case managers, guardian ad litems, really important people who we work with on a daily basis at Treehouse. So we know the depth of the work that you all do and just how meaningful it is. So thank you for all that you do, and really excited to share about our Treehouse programs today. Again, I'm Amber Alvarez, she, her programs, interim director for our Ed Advocacy program. Okay, so today we're going to be covering, again, Treehouse programs and services. So as you all were sharing the important roles that you play in the lives of our students, I was thinking to myself, oh, this is great. I think a lot of this information is going to be helpful for the majority of you, if not for all of you. So really excited to share it with you all today because I think it's applicable for most of you. And we'll be covering, again, the array of services. Okay, so this is just a really cool, quick programs overview. So before Treehouse as an organization, I guess, actually existed, we had just-in-time funding, which was started in 1988. My understanding is that this was born out of the desk drawer of some of our King County social workers. So it was a group of social workers who really identified a need for some of the students on their caseload. They realized that there wasn't the extra funds and the essential funds that some of the students on their caseload, the majority of the students on their caseloads needed for really important things, like certain school clothes for those soccer cleats, right? The different things. So they really noticed a deficit for the students that were on their caseload. And so my understanding is that they started with bake sales and, you know, just little fundraisers to help raise funds that they then used to apply, you know, to the students on their caseload. And really, they did this out of their own kindness of their heart. And it really ended up ballooning into Treehouse. And as you can see, we've been around since 1988, with just-in-time funding being our oldest program. And then we have our second oldest program, the Treehouse store, which Victoria gets to highlight and I love and I'm really excited about. So a little jealous that she gets to work in that store every day, and really excited about what she has to share about it. And then we have Ed Advocacy in 2001, which is the program that I have the absolute pleasure and privilege of being the interim director of. And I also have worked in this program for the last 5.5 years in different capacities, from an ed advocate myself in the Tri-Cities to a manager and some roles in between to now being interim director. So I know the work, I love the work, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about it today. And then I'll just skip around to a couple other ones. We have Graduation Success, which is a really cool program. And I personally see it as like a sibling program to Ed Advocacy. There are major differences, but we both provide direct service. So really excited again to share that with you. And then our newest program I will highlight is our Dual Systems Involved Youth, which was founded, I guess, in 2022. So really not that old at all. And I actually had the pleasure of overseeing this program as well. So the Dual Systems Involved Youth program we will touch on later, but essentially we are serving students who are at that intersectionality of being involved with the juvenile justice system and incarcerated in facilities. And also they are in foster care. So that intersectionality that we know exists and is underserved, we are now serving some of those students. So really excited about that work. Next slide, Victoria. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into Ed Advocacy. Ed Advocacy, the main goal of Ed Advocacy is to remove those immediate barriers to school success for youth in foster care. So one of the major differences between this program and our sibling program, Graduation Success, is that we are a short-term intervention-based program. So our goal is to come in to provide support to help build up those natural resources, such as all of you who are here, you know, our foster parents, our caregivers, our case aides, our social workers, right, to really help the team build them up, provide them with resources, maybe some knowledge, some coaching. We can show the example of how to do the thing. And the goal is to then be able to remove ourselves and to leave those existing supports in place in the form of you all. And you can continue to support the student and really any other student that comes into your home in the future or onto your caseload in the future. So this can look like an array of things. The biggest barriers, again, the main barriers we are removing are those educational barriers. And so that can look like many things. More often than not, it's access to school-based services, such as a 504 plan, general education interventions, and special education services. I would say the majority of meetings that I attended as an educational advocate were special education meetings, whether we were requesting for a student to be evaluated because we suspected that they may have a disability that was impacting their education, and they also required specially designed instruction. We also support with assistance addressing school disciplinary issues. This is a big one, as we all know, and I think Jordan, you talked about this a little bit. Many of our kids who come into care have experienced trauma to some degree, and sometimes we see that manifesting in our students in the form of behavioral challenges. And so we really try to support the team, support the schools. Well, support the schools and supporting the student, right? It's really all about the student, and it's really about reminding the team and whoever it is that The problem is not the student, it's the behaviors that are manifesting, and how do we support those behaviors and support the student through those challenges. So we get the absolute pleasure of being able to come in, provide support, understandably so. You know, this can be really difficult for some of our school staff, some of our foster parents, when we have these behavioral challenges. And one of the many things that we know to be true within it advocacy is that school stability often equates to home stability, because we know that if our students are getting in trouble at school and they're having to call their foster parents to come and get them, you know, or they're being expelled or suspended, and we're having to miss work, and we're having to, like, it creates challenges, right? It can create placement instability, and we don't want that at all. So we come in, we provide support, try to make sure the student has everything that they need in place. We also provide support when there's risk of retention or not making academic progress. And again, we will do our best to try interventions first. We never want to jump right into special education, but what has the school been trying? You know, where are the students' growth edges? What are things that we can try? One of the other important things that we support is school enrollment and or best interest determination meetings. So one of the things that I will always articulate when I get the chance is that anytime a student changes placement, we need to be having those best interest determination meetings. And so it doesn't matter if John moved 5 minutes away or if he moved 2 hours away. Even if the obvious decision feels like, well, he can't be on a bus 2 hours one way, like, let's just enroll him in this new school. We first need to have a meeting, right? Even if it doesn't make sense to put John on a bus for 2 hours one way, we should still be sharing information. We should still be saying, here, this is what John needs. This is what we've been working on here at the school with John. Here's where he's at in his academic progress. You should probably know that John gets escalated if he doesn't get to be the second person in line, you know, and to get lunch, right? All the little things that are really important get shared at these meetings. And we also will discuss transportation, school of origin. When it makes sense, we will try to keep our kids in their school of origin, because we know that every time a kid changes schools, they can lose up to 6 months of their education. So anyways, I could go on about ed advocacy all day, but I'd probably should get moving to give Victoria some time. But so that's ed advocacy in a nutshell. Who's eligible? Really important piece here. So participants must be pre-K through 12th grade, have an open state, federal, or tribal dependency or shelter care case, and be attending or attempting to attend a public school in Washington state. So all really important. I just really quickly want to highlight that this gets tricky. For example, if we have a student who has gone through the appropriate processes and has gotten a court order to attend private school, that's not a case we would be able to serve, right? Private school is not within the public school system. We can't support. And again, just going to plug this as well. There should be a court order there to get into private school. It's a process. So that's our eligibility. Who can refer? This is also important. DCYF can refer. CASAs, guardian ad litems, attorneys representing youth, OSPI staff in school district and school personnel. You'd be surprised. We sometimes get referrals from our foster care liaisons and school staff from time to time, and also tribal caseworkers and local Indian Tribal Welfare Advisory Committee individuals as well. And then to make a referral, they all have to be made online through that link here, and you'll get a copy of this presentation, but it's all done online. You do need to have an account to make a referral. My understanding is it's a quick process. It may take a day or two for our intake team or team to make sure that you're eligible for an account, because we don't just hand them out like they are candy. But once you are determined one of these individuals who can refer, you will have an account and you can refer as many kids as you would like. So even if you aren't sure if they are eligible, I would always say to try to make the referral, and you'll be informed whether or not the student is eligible. Thank you, Victoria. And just really quickly, before we stop talking about ed advocacy, this is a really nice visual here. We have currently, we just onboarded 2 new advocates yesterday, really excited about it. So our team, when we are fully beefed up, as I like to say, there are 17 of us across the state. 15 general education advocacy or advocates, and then 2 advocates who are serving our highly mobile population. We know that we have students who are in night-to-night placements, students who are having hotel stays, students who are experiencing 5 placements in a month, right? Those are highly mobile students. The stars represent where we theoretically have a physical body, an educational advocate. We do have a couple vacancies, but what you should know before we move on is that our program is statewide. So COVID was really terrible. One of the things though that we learned through COVID is that we could serve in most places just as effectively being remote. So now we cover statewide. You may have an advocate who's in Spokane covering a case in Yakima, right? And if there's an in-person meeting where everybody else is in person, that advocate will either travel or we will call our Yakima advocate and say, hey, can you be this physical body there while we are on the phone kind of deal. So just another important piece there.
Excellent. Did you have anything else on advocacy before I jump into the next one?
No, I mean, I do, but for the sake of moving on, Victoria, no, but thank you for asking.
Excellent. So I will mention briefly, so all of what we're talking about, Amber and I today, is all under the umbrella of Treehouse services. We're going to go through each of our different programs separately. And you'll notice that Amber went over the eligibility and who can refer. We are working towards a future of a kind of unified experience of Treehouse where those things are the same for every program. As we get there, we have a few of these that are tied to either contracts or specific requirements that mean they're different by program. So just wanted to name that it feels a little weird that Treehouse as a whole doesn't have a single eligibility standard or process for getting into services, but you can always contact our outreach and intake team. I believe we have their contact information at the end of this, and if we don't, we will definitely get it to you all. But that team is the one who coordinates all of getting folks connected to whichever programs are right for you. So just wanted to name that. So I'm going to jump into talking about our Just in Time funding program. As Amber said, this is how we got our roots in 1988. So we've been doing this for a while. And the core of Just in Time funding is making sure that young people have financial support to be able to participate in the experiences of growing up alongside their peers. All of the details of what we cover, all of our detailed guidelines are on our website. I always refer folks back there because there's a lot. We do have now, I'm excited after a long time waiting, finally, I think last year, maybe the year before, we formally published all of our guidelines for what we can and can't pay for. And we do everything from, depending on the part of the state you're in, we're serving 0 to 22-year-olds in this program. So you will see things in there that are not related to our teens and young adults that we will pay for tumbling classes and summer camps and things like that. But we have a whole range of items. So if you're on the guidelines page and you're looking specifically for supports for teens and young adults, it's mostly kind of, if you scroll down, you'll see educational support. So we'll pay for things like student ID cards, we'll pay for prom tickets, we'll pay for our young adults who are post-high school, if they have testing fees or lab fees for enrolling in a course. We don't pay tuition, but we will pay for some of the kind of other costs of enrolling in courses for career development or for continuing education. We do career support. So I just got a new job and I need all black clothes and black non-slip shoes. We can help pay for that. I'm going to be working and training as a nail tech. I need supplies. We can help you purchase the supplies for that. We can pay for things like food handlers cards. We can also do identity development items. So making sure that our young people have access to things that make them feel great. So sometimes that's tribal regalia supplies, that's gender affirming items, lots of things. We can also help pay for getting IDs, getting copies of any documents that they need. There's a whole huge range of things that fall under this. Overall, young people have a maximum cap per year of $2,500 through this program. There are individual caps for specific items within it. So for example, summer camps is a maximum of 600. So we won't pay 2,500 just for summer camp, but we'll pay 600, and then you can also access other pieces of the service as well to get to that 2,500 maximum cap per year. So that's the kind of overview of what does just-in-time funding do and what do we cover. Who are we working with? As I mentioned, depending on where you're at in the state, we are serving school-aged youth across all of Washington. So that's age 5 through 21, so up until your 22nd birthday. If you happen to be in King County or the case is in King County, then we will serve 0 to 4-year-olds as well. We also do serve participants in our graduation success and launch success programs. So those may be folks, and Amber will touch on this when she talks about those programs specifically. Those may be folks, though, who have achieved permanency or have not opted into EFC. So they're no longer connected to DCYF or dependent of the state, but they are still connected to Treehouse, and we will continue to serve them in our resource programs. Referring is virtually the same, I believe, as advocacy on this one. So it's your DCYF social worker, your CASA or GAL, your attorneys can refer anyone who works with the school or with the district, as well as DSHS. So we do work with Youth in the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program. So they're social workers as well as tribal caseworkers. And again, all of the information about where to refer, and then for more details about the program or guidelines, placing a request, that is all on the QR code or the link there on this slide. I will just mention what the process is for getting a request fulfilled. You'll just go to our website. There's a link right on there that says make a request. We'll ask for details about the young person. So who are we serving so we can make sure they're eligible. The social worker details in case we have questions about eligibility or it doesn't match with our records. What are you asking for payment for? We can either pay vendors directly, or for certain services, we can do reimbursements. We do have some services that are reimbursement only. So if it's a reimbursement, we'll ask for a receipt and details of what the payment was for. If it is a payment directly to the vendor, so I want to sign my kid up for day camp during spring break. Here's the registration details, here's the camp information, and then we can call the camp directly and pay by credit card over the phone so that you don't have to worry about that. So depending on the service, depending on what's easiest for you and easiest for the vendor, we can go either way. Okay, back over to you, Amber.
Thank you, Victoria. I just want to reiterate like how much I adore that program, and as an ed advocate, being able to tap into those funds, especially now that they're statewide, which it hasn't always been, is such a huge, for lack of better terms, like blessing for many of our kids. And one of the things that I will plug really quickly, again, big fan of just-in-time funding, is what I did as an ed advocate, and what I found to be pretty easy was if I had a student, let's say, who was having trouble keeping their busy little body sitting still in school, and when they needed a kick band or a swivel chair, right, we would make those requests, and I would include the direct Amazon link and say, hey, just-in-time funding staff, here's this link, if it's approved, and that kind of takes out the having to go back and forth, and then they'll just send it directly to you if it's eligible. Is that still a thing, Victoria? Is that helpful when links like that are included?
Absolutely. And those educational supports and supplies, we can certainly support folks on.
Awesome. Thank you. Such a huge fan. Okay, graduation success. So again, this is the sibling program to ed advocacy. This program is very beautiful in its own way. One of the major differences between it and ed advocacy is the fact that it's designed to be a long-term program. So we can begin supporting youth in the 8th grade. I will also say that it is both a student and staff-led program. So the student does have to opt into this program and work with that education specialist. So, but a student can join as early as 8th grade and be supported all the way through high school completion if that is what they would like to do. The other beautiful thing, one of the other beautiful things about this program is that a student only has to be eligible at the time they enter the program. So as Victoria hinted to not too long ago, let's say a student joins the program in 9th grade and in 10th grade, they're back home with parents, right? And the case is closed. They're no longer affiliated with DCYF. We can still support them because at the time they enrolled in that program, they were eligible, and that's all that matters to us. So that's really exciting because we don't just say, sorry, your case is closed. Have fun with the rest of your high school career. We know that students still need support, so we do our best to support them. So this program, one of the things I should have said about Ed Advocacy is that we don't work directly with students in Ed Advocacy. We work with the adults in the student's life to support that student. In Grad Success, they are working directly with those young people. So oftentimes they are meeting with those young people in school during like a break, or maybe for the first 5 minutes of an elective, or whatever it is that the school staff have helped them identify an appropriate time. They will quickly meet with that student to say, what's going on? How can we support you? Why are you missing 5 assignments in English? Would it help if there was an incentive? If you raise your grade by within 2 weeks, we might be able to get you a $25 gift card, right? They're setting incentives, they're setting goals. They are really being that extra person to check in with that student outside of the home and outside of school staff to say, how is school going and how can we support you? And what are some of, if any, barriers that you're having, right? So just super, super exciting stuff. My understanding is they get access to the students like Skyward or whatever it is, so they can help that student track, again, what is happening for them in school. I think I covered all that, but I'll just also highlight just the part where, again, they are helping to resolve those educational barriers as well. And oftentimes, one of the things that you should know is that in previous years, it was either a student was in graduation success or they were in Ed Advocacy for a short time. We have since realized that that's not super equitable, and we want to make sure that we're serving our students to the best of our ability. So we now have what's called dual enrollment. So we can have a student who is enrolled in graduation success and has a really excellent education specialist who's been supporting them and is like really on top of it, but maybe they're having some major challenges with the school as far as maybe the students being suspended, or maybe something's happening. They could always call in the support of an Ed Advocate to say, hey, look, like I could really use your support in this. What kind of resources do you have, or can you please come to this meeting and help advocate for this student of mine? Thank you, Victoria. So post-high school planning. So Treehouse is also committed to supporting our graduation success participants in planning and implementing a post-high school plan. So again, we're not just invested in getting the students to the finish line, that is high school completion. We want to help them, and we are committed to helping them plan for post-high school as well. And so that begins during the time a student is in high school. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, and so there are coaches who work with high school and young adults to develop that post-high school plan. So working again directly with these young people. My understanding is that to receive post-high school planning, a student does have to go through graduation success. So they do have to opt in within those years of 8th grade to high school to completion in order to continue to receive the support post-high school. So that's a really important piece. And what that looks like can look like an array of things, such as selecting college or apprenticeship programs, applying to schools, helping to complete FAFSAs, which, oh my goodness, that was such a struggle for me personally. Helping to create resumes, look for work, prepare for interviews, identifying resources that support basic needs, coordinating services to secure and maintain housing. So again, similar to EFC, I would say we know that the support, it's in the student's best interest for it to continue on even after high school, right? So we like to provide some support and make sure that our students have a plan and help support them alongside their own plan post high school. Thank you, Victoria. Graduation success. As I mentioned, who's eligible 8th through 12th grade, have an open state, federal, or tribal dependency case, and be pursuing a high school diploma or equivalent in Washington state. I believe that who can refer is exactly the same as the other programs. One of the things that I will note is on our Treehouse website, if you ever, again, the link's right there to the right, but if you ever just Google Treehouse for Kids, it'll should bring up one of the first links, our website. You can always look at the specific eligibility for each program. As Victoria said, the hope is that one day in the future that people won't have to worry, referrers will not have to worry about the specific programs and eligibility, and it will be kind of like if you're eligible for one program, you're eligible for them all. But for now, we do have specific eligibility for most of our programs, and that it can always be found on our website with usually the most up-to-date information. Thank you. Dual system involved youth. So again, this is our youngest program. I would say our youngest, but one of our most exciting programs. We are partnering with youth in foster care experiencing incarceration. And so the dual system involved youth was is a pilot program, and it provides ongoing support for youth who have an open dependency case and are currently incarcerated at the Echo Glen or Green Hill JR facilities. So we have, right now we're down to one navigator. It's a relatively small program. I was wondering if this was going to be an issue. My dogs sleep all day and this is like their time to get rowdy. So we have one navigator right now who is going into these facilities and is working directly with our young people to set goals, to help them work towards high school completion, to start planning for post-incarceration plans, and to really just start planning for their future, and also providing support while they are currently incarcerated at these two facilities. And also just want to highlight that right now we are just currently at those two facilities. I don't know what plans are for the future, but currently we are serving Echo Glen and Green Hill. Okay. Thank you, Victoria. So tribal engagement, another exciting program. So this program specifically provides educational services tailored to support our tribal youth in care. So really cool, really exciting. Through this program, we partner with young people to create their own plan towards self-determined goals, develop self-advocacy skills to remove barriers for academic and personal growth. The goal is also to navigate and access resources from Treehouse and other community partners, and then help resolve education barriers related to the lack of academic progress, disciplinary issues, and school transitions. I will also highlight that this program is really neat. Treehouse is really intentional. The director of this program is absolutely amazing and is really intentional about hiring staff who are reflective of the community and the young people that they are serving. And so, which is such an important piece in connecting with our students. And as Victoria also named earlier, we are supporting students with their specific needs and wants, that tribal regalia, the other special supplies that our tribal students may need or want. We help make sure that they get those things that are really important and identity affirming. Who's eligible? So for tribal engagement specifically, participants must be aged 13 to 21, working towards high school completion in tribal jurisdiction or Department of Children, Youth, and Families Care, and identify as tribally affiliated. They must also reside in our current service areas, which are Greater Marysville, Greater Auburn, Greater Bellingham, Ferndale, and Greater Yakima. So, this talks a little bit about their approach, which is super important and what I referenced earlier, and then who can refer. So we're looking at tribal caseworkers, local Indian Tribal Welfare Advisory Committee, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, CASA's guardian ad litem's, attorneys representing youth, OSPI, and school personnel. Very similar, I think, to the previous eligibilities. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'll just name both of the last pieces that Amber spoke about, the dual system involved youth program and the tribal support program are basically subsets of graduation success. So it's a similar program model, but has been adapted to be specific to the needs of those populations. So the overarching theory of support is the same, but we want to, again, meet youth where they're at and recognize that they may have some unique support needs based on their identities. So I will touch on the Treehouse store. Just-in-time funding was our first ever program. The store came along second. So we've been, again, doing this for a long time. Super excited that this program is now statewide. We do operate out of a hub in Seattle, but we take online orders and can support young people anywhere in Washington state. We can't ship outside Washington state, unfortunately, just due to budget constraints. So the goal of the store is we are a free resource for young people to access clothes, shoes, school supplies, toys, books, all the things that we know young people need to be prepared to walk into the classroom, to engage in their life, to engage in their community, and to be able to focus on the things that are important to them. Clothes is our main focus. That's where most of our capacity is, but we do all of those other things as well. The goal of this program is to be a confidence building program. We want to make sure that youth and young people feel great. We know you are more likely to go to school. Know you are more likely to engage with your peers when you're not worrying about the jacket that's too small and just doesn't really fit right. When you're more confident that the outfit you got to put on this morning feels like you, not like whatever you were handed. So our inventory is predominantly donated to us. It is a mix of new and gently used, but our goal is that everything feels new to its new owner. So we are fortunate to be able to be really picky in what we keep for our program. And if you are in the Seattle area, we are open 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, year round. You don't need an appointment. You can just come on in and shop. Young people can shop for themselves. If they're 14 and older, they don't need any adult with them. They can just come on in and shop. They're welcome to bring a friend with them. One of my favorite things is when our young adults come in with a group and do a little fashion show in the fitting rooms and show off what they've found. We also, caregivers can shop on behalf of young people or any of the other kind of supportive folks in their life. So social workers can come in and shop, CASAs and guardian ad litem's can come in and shop, attorneys, if it is someone who is not listed on the referral, so the social worker or the caregiver, we do ask that you give us a heads up and just give us a call and say like, hey, I'm authorizing my neighbor to come shop. They're going to be in the area. I'm authorizing Auntie to come in and shop. Can you make a note in the enrollment? That'll just make it easier for us to find the right person and get it connected. You can come in and shop or shop online up to 3 times a year for a full visit. A full visit is usually about 30 items, 15 clothing items plus 5 to 15 other items. If you just need a special request, my kid loses their jacket on the playground every other week. I just need a new coat. You don't have to do a full request. You can always put in a special request and we can just get you that 1 or 2 items. Same with back to school season. If you just need some school supplies, put in a special request. We'll ship you a box with a backpack, all the school supplies you need, and that will not count towards your annual visit limit. For online requests, it's on our website and you'll have an optional style survey. So you can tell us this youth has sensory issues. They can't do zippers or buttons. They can't do tags, or I like baggy clothes. I like slim fitting clothes. I like bright colors, no colors, please, no patterns. You can give us all those details about your preferences and let us know then how many t-shirts you're looking for, how many jeans, how many sweatpants, how many shorts. If you need shoes, all of the other miscellaneous items. Our amazing volunteer crew will take that survey, take all those details. They will pull items from our store and do a little personal shopping. We'll pack it up and we'll ship it straight to your doorstep. Let's see. Oh, a bunch of that info is on this slide. So who is eligible? This is basically exactly the same as just-in-time funding. It is our school-aged and older, so 5 and up, 5 to 22-year-olds anywhere in the state, or youth 0 to 4 in King County or with their case out of King County, as well as any participants in the graduation success and launch success programs. I will just name throughout this, some places you see launch success named. That is the slide that Amber covered about post-high school supports. We are transitioning to, like I said, kind of a more unified experience of Treehouse. So the launch success name, you'll see some places and not others. So it's referenced still in here as eligible, but that is the body of work that was covered as post-high school supports. Same referring criteria. One note about referrals for resources. So for graduation success, like Amber said, once you're in the program, as long as you want to stay in the program till graduation, you're in. For anyone who is not in graduation success, they do need an annual referral for resources. So if you are not engaging in high school coaching, you do need to be eligible every June when our referral period opens. And you will need a new referral to continue services after July 1st. Usually that's pretty easy. Social workers will just go in and update the referrals for their whole caseload in our site, and you'll be good to go. Oh, one more item for material resources. I don't think I have a formal slide on it. We do also have a holiday gift program that is a sister program to the store, but runs slightly separately. Holiday Magic. If you are eligible, DCYF will refer you. We get a master list of everybody who's eligible. We will reach out via email and with a paper postcard in usually September and October. And you can register for that through early December. We will again ship a gift right to your doorstep. Happy to answer more detailed questions on that if you have questions on it. Driver's assistance is kind of the sister program to just-in-time funding. So driver's assistance is specifically for our 15 to 21-year-olds who are getting on the road and getting independence behind the wheel. We know that a huge milestone for our young people to be able to get themselves to school, get themselves to work, launch into independence, especially in areas that don't have strong public transportation or things are spread out, is the ability to get behind the wheel. And we know that for a lot of young people who need that, but don't have these supports, they will drive, they just won't do it legally or safely. So we want to make sure they have all the resources to do that. Do that meaning do that legally and safely. So this program can pay for everything from driver's ed to driving and testing fees. We can pay for extra drives as well. I know getting the hours required for practice driving is one of the biggest barriers for a lot of our young people trying to learn to drive. We will pay for as many extra practice hours as you need. And we have relationships with a number of the driving schools that our young people attend who know us, are used to getting checks from us, and have developed special packages for some of our young people to get those extra supports in place so that they're ready to take that driving test. We can also pay for IDs. So theoretically, that real ID is coming soon. Treehouse and driver's assistance can pay for young people to get not just their license, but also the real ID qualified enhanced license to make sure that they can still travel, access anything they need to once that goes into effect. We can also pay a percentage of their auto insurance. So we moved this year to a step down model. For the first 6 months in the program, we'll pay 80% of the student's premium. For the next 6 months, we'll pay 60%. And then until they exit the program, we'll pay 40%. That is something we do not provide the insurance. So youth, we do have a broker we work with who's amazing, who can help find a good plan for a young person, or they can join the plan of whoever they are living with. And then we will pay either as a reimbursement or again, a direct payment to the vendor for the portion of the youth's cost. We also, as of last year, added a number of other services here. So we can pay for things like gas cards, we can pay for roadside assistance, so making sure that our young people have a AAA membership. AAA does a ton more than towing as well. They do lockout services, they do credit monitoring, you get discounts places, they have a bunch of other services that it qualifies our young people for. Highly recommend that folks sign up for that. We can also pay for basic repairs and maintenance. We can pay for car tabs. I can speak for myself, and my not very nice car still has real expensive tabs every year. So we can help pay for that for all of our young people. There's lots of things. I know there's ones that I'm missing in this category because they're all newer to us. But all the details again are on our site. Similar to just-in-time funding, there are some of those we can only do by reimbursement. There are some of those that we can do direct to vendor. So you can go to our website, get all the details for what we can pay for, how much we can pay, and fill out any of the requests on there. Driver's assistance does have a very different eligibility and referral process. Luckily, it's an easier one. We get a list every month from DCYF of everybody who qualifies for this program. So you can just go on, place that request. If we haven't worked with you before, we'll either check our list. If we don't see on there, we'll reach out to your social worker and double check to see if there's a reason that our record wasn't lining up. This one is strictly defined by our contract with DCYF for the service. So it is more restrictive than most of our programs, meaning participants do need to be 15 to 21. It doesn't go up to 22 like most of our services, and have an open state, federal, or tribal dependency case, and be in a foster placement or a trial return home, or be in EFC. Now that, yay, people can opt back into EFC, it means that if you thought you were rocking at 18, you were good, and you realize at 19 that you need some of these supports, opting back into EFC will unlock this key for you as well and get you access back into driver's assistance. Let's see, am I missing anything on here? I think that's all I've got on driver's assistance. We do have a couple of other resources here that we have on our website. So our resource center, we have just a page where we collect links and resources. A lot of it is educational supports and resources. It's info pages about youth educational rights and how to advocate for young people. It's links to other organizations that can help support caregivers and young people and care teams. So lots of cool stuff going on in that resource center. We have our Advocacy Action Center. If you haven't signed up for this, we just had an alert go out today asking folks to write to your state senators and representatives. Our advocacy team works diligently to be working in Olympia with legislators to advocate for changes to the system that will benefit our young people. They are also advocating for funding to support all of the programs we've talked about, or many of the programs we've talked about tonight. This year, I think every one of our lead priorities that we are asking for and all of the things we're supporting are directly for teens and young adults to make sure that they have the supports they need. So awesome stuff happening there. We need people all over the state to be contacting their legislators to tell them to support our young people in care. If you're not already signed up for our newsletters, highly recommend you do that as well. Links on here. Again, you'll get the PowerPoint with all the links. We have one that's specifically tailored towards caregivers and care teams, and another one that is specifically tailored towards young people. Lots of info about both what's going on in Treehouse, and we partner with a bunch of other organizations and community partners to get out information about events happening, scholarships, updates on partner programs, all kinds of things. So great resources there. And I see a couple questions in the chat, and that's the end of the actual presentation.